Hi, I'm Mike with the School of Self-Reliance, and today we're going to talk about barter goods in a world without law, or without the rule of law type circumstance, or an SH TF situation. I'm sure you all know what that means. I have my own opinions on barter goods, and there's a lot of people out there who base everything that they tell you on opinion. And if you've watched this channel for a while, you know that I try not to deal too much in opinion. I try to deal in fact. So what I've done with our students is I've went out and I've talked to people or read up on people who have actually lived through a circumstance of a without the rule of law circumstance. And I try to draw on their experiences for the advice that I give. And today we're going to talk about a man named Selco. He survived the Bosnian conflict in the early 90s. He was on the southern border of the former Yugoslavia when it broke apart. And the region that he was in, a couple of cities and small towns, were surrounded by the three rival factions that when the country broke up: the Croats, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and the Serbians. And they duked it out. Well, apparently, in this circumstance, according to him, there was no real good guy. The civilians were just kind of caught in the middle, and you could expect trouble from any side. So he lived under that circumstance for 1 year. I think that represents a realistic scenario for us to mimic. Here in the United States. Yugoslavia, before it broke up, was middle first world status. You could get first world health care there. Phone systems worked. There was constant electricity, things like that. They just held the Olympics there. Modern transportation systems, so on and so forth. So very first world. And overnight that was gone. It turned into a nightmare scenario overnight. And this man lived through that. So what did he say about that? Because I want his experience rather than somebody's opinion. So when you talk about barter goods, what did they barter? Because their situation would very closely mimic ours here in the United States. So what did they barter? Well, they bartered these types of things. All your survival needs don't change from circumstance to circumstance. Just the priority in which you fill them changes. But everybody always needs medicine. They always need hygiene. They always need a place to sleep. They always need the ability to stay warm and dry. They need those abilities. So food, water, shelter, security, medical, hygiene, those things never change. They're exactly the same. So what are good barter goods? They're the things that you need to survive day to day. Your needs are the same as everybody else's when it comes down to it, when you're pulled down to the lowest common denominator of survival. So what you need is the same thing everyone else needs. You're going to need water, and that's going to mean purification. Bleach. Bleach does not cost much. It doesn't cost much at all. As a matter of fact, this is really cheap. And you can store a lot of it, and it can purify water for you. It can do a lot of other things too, but main thing, purify water. And of course it's a cleaning agent and so on. It could be used as a mild disinfectant depending on how you diluted it in the water. But the main thing, it's going to purify a lot of water. This gallon jug is going to purify literally hundreds of gallons of water, many hundreds of gallons. So bleach, they traded a lot of bleach. Basic hygiene items, soap, just bars of soap. People have to stay clean at some point. Granted, they're not going to be as clean as they used to be. But being able to get clean is going to ward off disease and things like that. Candles. You got to have light. You got to be able to see. And the electricity is out. Okay? They woke up one morning, there was no more electricity. You couldn't go fix the electricity because there were military forces in the way and the infrastructure was destroyed by the fighting. So, candles of any kind, whether they're teacup candles, these types of candles, these types, doesn't matter. Matches. got to be able to start a fire. You've got to be able to light those candles. Okay, so matches, and you'd be surprised how many American households don't have but just a few matches in them. Very few. If you're in the middle of a cold winter and you're constantly lighting fires and things like that, those matches are going to run out very quickly. Box matches, strike anywhere, be more valuable than book matches. Bic lighters. Bic lighters. 1,000 Bic lighters wouldn't take up much space. That's his advice, not mine. They don't take up much space, but everybody needs one, especially in those circumstances. So they're valuable. They don't take up much space. They can be bartered. Medical items. Medical items and people with medical knowledge. The more you know about medicine, dentistry, things like that, the more you're able to help out with somebody. You can trade services as well as items for other items. Alcohol is a disinfectant. And drinking alcohol. Drinking alcohol, if you're treating wounds, hey, if you don't have other types of alcohol, that's an excellent disinfectant. Now, there is also, well, we all know you use it to get drunk. And in the worst of circumstances, people will look for a distraction. They'll look for some escape from it. And if there is no immediate escape, alcohol makes a convenient one. So it has value in more than one way. So it is a good barter item. Trash bags. Mainly because trash bags have so many uses. Not just that you're going to be throwing all of your trash into them. You could use it for that. But these may be used for rain ponchos. They may be used for survival gear to keep the rain off of your head. They could be used to seal up windows and things like that, keep the rain or cold air out. And that brings us to another item. Duct tape. It really does have a million uses. And when you can't go outside of your home and do regular carpentry work and go down to the hardware store and buy windows and things like that to replace broken glass and whatnot, and the weather is getting cold, trash bags, duct tape, they work wonders. This can also be used to wrap wounds. This can as well. You can carry things in it. You can also carry water in it, store it in it if you have to. It's not ideal, but you can. And they've got a lot of other uses. And he said that they heavily traded these items. Cigarettes. I don't care what your personal feelings on cigarettes are. My feelings are simple. It's a bad habit, one I happen to possess. But trust me, as a smoker, and I've been a smoker for a long time, in a bad circumstance when the cigarettes run out, believe me, people will give you things. If they are a smoker, they will loosen their purse strings in order to get some cigarettes. They really will. It's a luxury, yes, it's a vice. However, it's a vice that happens to exist, and they are worth money. And they were in his circumstance. Of course, food. Storable food. You can trade somebody a steak. Obviously you can. Okay, and they're going to be very happy to get that. But that steak's going to have to be eaten that day or very shortly, or they're going to have to have some method of preservation. Remember, the lights are out. You don't have a deep freezer anymore. So the most valuable food products are going to be your food products at store. Also because these are easy to carry around and trade. They really are. And with the alcohol, when you're talking about that, these little medicinal bottles is just like money. Different sizes so that you can make a more even purchase or barter. And think about that with the food too. Different size cans. Don't just go out and get number 10 cans of everything, because you know, if you need something and it's not worth a number 10 can of food, you're in trouble. So smaller ones, bigger ones, you know, medium size, something so you can break up the denominations. Hygiene items. Something as simple as toothpaste. And you know, things like Tums, they go into the medical category. And your teeth will rot out of your head very, very quickly. They really will. You start going from having a clean mouth to a very filthy mouth and not cleaning it, get abscesses really, really quickly. You can die from abscesses, okay? Oral infections killed a lot of people before we started using good oral hygiene. They really did. Antibiotics. Antibiotics. People will get hurt. People will die from septicemia and other forms of blood poisoning and infections, gangrene, and so on. If you don't get to a doctor, if you can't keep the wound clean, if it does become infected, sepsis will set in. You'll die from it. So antibiotics in a horrible circumstance, believe me, if somebody is sick and they have an infection, a simple scratch on their arm may have turned to blood poisoning. It may go gangrenous. And I promise you, if they're anywhere near that point, that bottle of antibiotics is worth a lot to them. I'm not saying to be a predator on other people. It just happens to have value. And these are the circumstances that you're dealing with. Because you won't always have the water that you might, this man Selco said that they went through a lot of disposables, just simply throwing it away. Using it to eat with, maybe cleaning up once or twice, and then throwing it away. Because they didn't have proper sanitation for everything. So disposables, the ability to eat and drink and throw your stuff away. That may seem counterintuitive, but that's what he said. That's what happened where he was at. One of the other things very valuable, toilet paper. Believe me, if it's a choice between this and this looks a lot better. Also, if you've ever used the hillbilly method, which is a corn cob, that is far preferable. Plus, this has other uses too. It can pack wounds and things like that. It can be used as a filter. And, well, its number one use, we all know, and it's one that most of us wouldn't want to live without. And quite frankly, if you're not cleaning up down there after you do your business, it isn't going to take a whole hell of a long time before you start to notice with a lot of bacterial infection around there that some of this would have came in handy and some good hygiene. Coffee. Coffee is an excellent barter good. This man said that coffee was extremely valuable. Hey, people are addicted to caffeine, but also it has a practical application. This stuff keeps you regular. It's a diuretic. And if you're having to sit up and trade guard shifts all night long, to keep your family safe, it's a stimulant. People have been using coffee to stay awake for a long time. And, when you're in the 4th or 5th hour, which you shouldn't be, you should always break your guard shifts down to 2 hours per person, no more, but you may not have that many people. So, under those circumstances, if you haven't slept in a while and you've been doing a lot of strenuous activity and so on, you have to sit up all night while other people sleep and watch and stay alert, a cup of coffee would help out a lot. Plus, it's comfort. It's comfort. It's something familiar and comforting. And in a bad circumstance, that's worth everything. Lighter fluid. For starting fires, fueling Zippos, things like that. Again, it's back to the basic ability to start a fire and keep warm. Propane. This guy actually said that he never traded his propane. It was just simply too valuable for cooking and so on. Remember, in a bad circumstance, you might be inside of a home or a building with a lot of other people or just your family, and you may not want to give away your presence there. You may not want a fire lighting everything up at night. You may not want smoke or the smell of smoke, but you still might want hot food. And that propane will do that for you. Also, if you can't burn a regular fire, there are propane heaters that run off of this type of stuff. So you could heat and stay warm at night during the winter and not have to give away your position and let everybody in the world know that, hey, there's a bunch of people in here. There's no smell. It's odorless. Those are some of the things. And weapons and ammunition. That's one I always get asked about, trading weapons and ammunition. Now, he agreed. Weapons and ammunition were heavily bartered during the Bosnian conflict. They were bartered among civilians. Everybody needs to be able to protect themselves. They have to be able to defend what they have if they expect to keep it. Because in a bad circumstance, if somebody thinks you have a lot of any of this, or even just a little, and they have none, believe me, no matter how well fortified you are, it's just a matter of how many guns they have to get together to come take what you have. Okay? And they will do it. But he said that they were heavily traded. My advice on weapons and ammunition is yes, you could trade the ammunition. I would trade in small quantities. Keep in mind, whatever you sell to another person in the way of a weapon may be used on you by that person the next day. Anyway, weapons and ammunition. Whatever you trade to somebody may be used on you the next day by the same person that you sold it to. Okay, so keep that in mind. Know who it is that you're going to trade those weapons or ammunition to. If they're average, normal people that you've been associating with during this crisis, then, neighbors, things like that, people that you really do know, then okay, fine, trade weapons and ammunition. Okay, especially if you need to. But I would keep it light. I wouldn't try to go out and sell the guy next door that's questionable to me an M60, and all the ammunition that he could, no matter how bad I needed what he had. Because, well, with that, he can take pretty much whatever he wants from me. So I'd think that through and be careful about it. Be very, very careful of who you trade those items to. Another item, batteries. Batteries of any kind. In every disaster, in every bad circumstance, batteries become worth their weight in gold. They run radios, they run flashlights, they run a million other devices. And those flashlights, let's face it, you don't want to have to walk around with a torch. Light's an incredibly valuable commodity, especially if you're trying to identify a target to decide whether or not you need to shoot at it. Or if you're just trying to get a look at a map or something like that and you shield the flashlight, you can't do that with a torch. Candles, yes, but batteries have always been valuable in every emergency, and he agrees with that 100%. Now, his website is shtfplan.com. We're going to put that in there so that you can see it. And his name was Selco. And he also said one other thing, that money wasn't worth anything. That on a rare occasion, people who had foreign currency, because their currency had collapsed, were able to trade German marks or French francs or things like that. But the exchange rate was hellish. You're talking about $30 to $50 for a 50-cent can of food. That's a lot. So I don't know if you'd be able to store enough money to make it worth it. And depending on how localized your without rule of law circumstance is or how broad it is, money in general may not be worth much. Gold or silver might, because people, gold, silver, diamonds, things like that, platinum, they have intrinsic value. Whenever societies rebuild, they always have value. So somebody may find those valuable. I personally don't necessarily disagree with it, and I certainly don't disagree with having some cash on hand. But I would not use that as your primary barter source. These items are your primary barter source. Let's face it, think this through. If you haven't eaten in a while, that can of beans means a whole lot to you. Especially if it's 3, 4, 5 days, 6 days without food, that can of beans means a lot. If you haven't brushed your teeth in the better part of a month, maybe 2, toothpaste becomes very, very valuable to you, especially when you look at your children who have teeth that are hurting and bleeding gums and things like that. Maybe they have, starting of an infection, that type of stuff. Your children started to lose teeth. Well, that toothpaste starts to have a lot more value to you then than it does today. And like I said, candles, things like that. Food's a #1 commodity. And so it will always be worth something. Bleach, again, that'd be my #2. Food and bleach for trading. I hope you found the information in this video helpful. And if you like what we do, like us on Facebook, watch our videos, share our videos, subscribe to our channel. And if you want to help us bring you more great content so that we can get more equipment and do more great videos, you can also go to our fan funding and donate there to help us out. And again, I'm Mike with the School of Self-Reliance. Thanks for watching.